Happy Wednesday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder, CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Jeff Menig on the show. Welcome to the Wolff Den.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me. I love the intro song.
Yeah, it's great. It's all by Canva, I think. It was just trying to figure out what song. It's not bad. Maybe we'll change it. Maybe we'll keep it. We'll see.
Very cool.
Decided to chat music today. That's your specialty. But for the people in the audience who don't know who you are, give a quick intro and then let's get into it.
My name is Jeff Menig. I've been working in the music industry since 1999, not to age myself too much. I currently manage the band Left to Suffer. I formerly was the marketing director for the Masquerade in Atlanta, Georgia. I was the original founder and CEO of FeaturedX.com, and I've just been managing and promoting music for my whole life, basically.
Yeah, well, that's a good place to start. Is how did you get into it? Because it was a young age when you started. How and why?
I was 17, still in high school. I was in a band. We played. We started the band in like '97, I think. So this is pre the internet, basically, pre-social media. We played at I'm from Poughkeepsie, New York area in upstate New York. We played at the local venue called the Chance Theater once every 3 months. And that's what we did. And it was like, we want to play more shows. We had no idea how to go about getting more shows. And one of my friends just jokingly during lunch class said, well, if you threw your own show, you could just put your band on it. And I said, oh, wow, that sounds interesting. I'm going to figure out how to do that. And I did. And the first show that I did was a huge success. I made a lot of money and I had like a literal light bulb moment. And I just said, this is what I'm going to do.
What was the band? What did you play? What kind of music was it?
It was a hardcore band. I played guitar. Kind of like a New York hardcore band, basically.
And it's sort of it's sort of stuck with you, that type of music, right?
Yeah, I had been going to shows for a few years, gotten involved in the local scene, and just from the first show that I went to, I was hooked, just from seeing how chaotic and crazy it was.
It's it's a real certain type of music, right? There's a lot of people who, like, I love all kinds of music and there's just certain stuff I don't. A lot of times the hardcore metal, the hardcore rap, all that stuff is like, that kind of gets a bad, rap, pun intended. But there's a lot of talent there.
That's my bread and butter. The scarier that it is to normal people, probably the more likely I'll like it.
Yeah. And they like it louder and scarier.
Absolutely. You always want to push everything to the extreme, right?
Yeah. Are there anyone in that type who's kind of went a little bit more mainstream? I'm trying to think.
I mean, recently you would have like A Day to Remember that came from that scene. I Prevail, bands like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The shows that you started with and then you continued on. What did you learn along the way? Because obviously, you did the first show and it was a success, but it's a light bulb to go and continue. But it's not like, hey, I got this huge business. I know everything. So how did you learn along the way, and what was the thing that was the hardest for you as you were working on this?
It literally was just trial by fire, just by my gut tells me this is the logical approach to doing something like this. So I'm just going to try it and see what works and see what doesn't. And then it was just continuously doing it over and over and over again. And I don't know, I would like to think I just had a natural knack at it where my gut just doesn't steer me the wrong way typically. And prior to booking shows, I had been kind of like an entrepreneur already, making money in high school in very interesting hustler type ways. So it kind of
I took
So
bets one time.
I did take
I
bets.
had a book of people that were betting, and my father answered the phone one time because it was off the kept ringing and ringing, and he asked for me, and they're like, "Is Matt there?" Like, no. He's like, "Oh, just tell him to call me back. I want to put a bet on the Bulls." Is what this high school like.
Oh, you were being a bookie. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. That's what this kid
Oh,
says to my dad.
that's great. Yeah, no, I would whenever there was going to be a fight after school, I would leave a period early to go set up like parking at the designated fight location, and then I would take bets from all the kids that came to watch the fight.
Yeah, that's like movie scene stuff. That's what we get going there. When you talk about promoting, there's, I guess, I want to hear the approach or what you think is the difference between promoting someone who is known and has a following, and then trying to promote someone, or trying to first find the people that you think are going to be good and trying to promote them.
Yeah, so there's definitely a difference in trying to develop an artist and getting them an audience or whatever versus promoting somebody with an already established act. I think most local bands don't realize that it's not actually the promoter's job to promote their band. It's their job to promote the show, which is promoting the brand awareness of the acts on the event. So if the artists don't have any brand awareness, you can promote till the sun comes home, but it's not going to really matter. So there's definitely a different approach as to growing an artist rather than promoting a show, which should already have some established stuff. Um, when it comes to growing an artist, I literally just start to think of like what is the stereotypical kid? I always call them kids. What's the stereotypical kid that would like this band? Like really try and pinpoint like the exact kind of person, the shade of gray. And then once you have a determination, then start thinking about what are those kids into beyond music, and then trying to infiltrate them in their worlds via the other things that they're into.
I think when I go to shows and I see opening acts, save for country, because country is country. For the most part, you're gonna like the acts. I
Yep.
think. I don't always see people thinking, well, they like our stuff, so I think they're gonna like this stuff. They just kind of put people out there. Not to say that you can't like it. I have such a wide range, so I end up liking a lot of this stuff. But I don't know that they do a great job of saying, hey, this person kind of sounds like us or has that kind of vibe that we have, that brand almost that could end up having that brand. And I feel like a lot of that it doesn't happen as often as it should in touring. What do you see out there?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I've ever thought about that before. It feels as though probably the headlining bands and their teams probably think that putting the bands on the tour is good enough. Um, so I don't think they've ever even thought about doing that, where if they actually did the legwork to expose their audience to the openers, maybe more people would go because they would like more of the bands.
Yeah, we see a lot of. I mean, there's shows I've gone where the fans of the opener were there early, and then they leave, and you see a little, some emptiness for some of the, bigger bands that show up a little later.
Yeah, that happens a lot where the legacy artists, if you want to call them that, always leverage the hype of the younger new bands to help their ticket sales of their shows, even if people don't stay.
And they have I mean, there's bands that we've never heard of. I've never heard of. I know a lot of music, but there's a lot of these. I'm a headliner guy, so I don't know a lot of the smaller type of groups, but their fan clubs are just, I mean, fanatical. They use the word fanatical is that's it. They're going to travel to go see them. They're very defensive when someone is, saying anything about them. We get that a little bit. I go on the 6-man cruises and the rock one. The
Oh, okay.
stories I've heard, like when Hanson was on,
Oh, Hanson.
We're outrageous. But you don't have to be a Billboard charting artist to have a very good following and build that following.
No, not even. I don't think people realize like you only need to be big enough to. If you're drawing like 500 people a night, you can make a lot of money of being that big of an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about leveraging those fanatics, I would say, and trying to use their excitement to reach more of the quote unquote normal fans who are just like the average, listener. The percentage of kids that actually pay attention to all of the bands coming up is quite small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I follow you on social media a little bit. You're kind of like me. You say what's on your mind, not afraid to just say what's on your mind, which I think is great.
And it's obvious, and it's honestly way toned down from where I used to be like 10
Yeah.
years ago.
Why is that? I mean, you went a little corporate, right? You had a big job with the Masquerade, and that kind of prevents you from maybe saying everything you want to say, or
For sure, that was it, it wasn't really a corporate situation. There was still an independent venue,
right.
but there was a definite scenario where I couldn't just say whatever the heck I wanted to, for sure. Also, I think, just getting older and realizing some things are, better left unsaid.
Yeah.
So,
Or it's like uh, it amazes me what people put online these days. I'll say things all the time, if we're just having a conversation, but to put it online, to say it on the record on an interview, and I do believe people should be genuine, and I am. You ask me how I feel, I'll tell you, but there are certain ways to say certain things, and some of the stuff I read is just it's outrageous in the music world, and obviously, you know,
yeah, I don't know. Part of me thinks that maybe people have just gotten so used to cameras being everywhere that they're too comfortable and
yeah.
they're acting like they would behind closed doors at all times, which isn't the best move.
The music that you promote and your band, and it's when you get to the heavy metal stuff, it's similar to all music, right? There's a lot of violence in it, and and this is music, right? We should be able to separate the music and entertainment from, hey, these people are going out there, doing this type of stuff. But
It's interesting how most people can't separate the the artist from the art when it comes to music, even though they can with actors in movies. Like, you don't think Paul Rudd is Ant-Man or whatever he plays like all the time, right? Like, that just seems silly. So I don't know why that is. Maybe because there's a more emotional attachment for people to artists.
but as we see in the news, that we have to draw a line somewhere. So what do you do if I mean, you manage one band, but you were booking other stuff? If someone you're booking, or as you're looking to book, how much do you need to know sort of who they are as a band and what they stand for, with doing, because not it's a small segment. So look, you could say all this wild stuff and you could still have that big following,
For sure.
but
Hmm.
is that the right thing to do? I don't know. That's a tough call, right?
For me personally, I I that does play a factor because it's like you're messing with one person can fuck up a lot of people's money.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put hours and hours and hours and hours into something just for one knucklehead to screw it all up.
Yeah. No, that
Um,
makes sense.
yeah, at the same time, you don't want to censor people or try and have them be something that they're not. It's just you have to be cognitive of what you say and how you say it
Yeah.
and when you say it and where you say it and just how that will be perceived. And Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had to be like, message and be like, "Hey, maybe don't say this like that, or maybe take this down, or you're probably gonna bring bad attention." You know what I mean? So
It used to be no PR is bad PR. I'm going to disagree with that, but there's value to negative PR depending on what that negative
oh, there for
is.
sure is. Yeah.
And I think, these days you would think everyone knows right from wrong. Like this is absolutely right. This is absolutely wrong. That seems to be blurred these days, especially in the sports and entertainment world.
We have gotten to a point where everyone really sees the world differently, and we're
Yeah.
arguing about it, I think.
And
So,
you can, but again, the difference is like when I talk about data a lot, and like I can look at the half glass full, half glass empty. They're both
mhm.
right. I look at a 6, you look at a
Yep.
9. We're standing here. You're both right. But there are certain things where people are looking at it differently. It's like, yeah, I don't know that we can get behind that. We got a question from Dana. Dana is in the industry and kind of looking to follow your footsteps. Wants to know how much do you rely on social media likes and follows to book bands?
Um, as far as I guess as on like an individual show, as like a local band opening a show, or are you talking about like booking a band as far as being an agent? I think
She can
the the
clarify.
just yeah, I think the clarification there
And the likes
would
is
help.
hard because people can get a lot of likes, but they don't get a lot of engagement, right? You always got to look at that engagement. Like this person's got 400,000 followers. Why do they have 37 people?
I kind of think it's a situation where you have to look at everything. You need to, and everything that you can see. The most valuable data and information is stuff that the public can't see, unfortunately. Um, but if you go to their Spotify, don't just rely on their monthly listeners because that's a fake number. But if you use Spotify on a computer, you can click their about section and it will tell you how many followers on Spotify they have. So that ratio of followers to monthly listeners, I think, is important. And then seeing both of those numbers and then comparing them to their social media platforms. Do all of the people what's the percentage of people that are listening to them on Spotify that have moved over to follow them on other platforms? Because I've seen artists with one over a million monthly listeners that can't sell 50 tickets, and you realize, oh, they only have 5,000 followers on Instagram. None of those people actually converted into real fans.
Yeah. Or they can be real fans, but they're just never in that area where you're playing.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to believe that all music is becoming elevator music, meaning that it's just becoming background for some situation.
Yeah.
And most humans won't do the work to actually find out who the artists on these playlists are.
So what's most important? If I'm a fan, I can go to a show, right? I could follow you on social media. I could have it on my Amazon Music. Let's say I'm not on Spotify.
Mhm.
What if they're not going to do all of it? What would you rather have?
Oh, that's tough. um, Personally, probably the social media following because you can push them to more stuff. You can push them to tour dates promotion or merch drops or new music. Right now, Spotify and other music platforms doesn't have a way to actually engage with and communicate with anyone that follows you.
Yeah, it's just like listen
So
to
it's
me.
a little bit if people are just discovering you on Spotify and not going anywhere else, the likelihood of them to find out about the new stuff that you're promoting is just a lot lower.
And so it used to be my remember, MySpace obviously was
Of course.
music was a big part of MySpace. And if I can only play, I'm a band, I have a band, I can only put my stuff in one place, and that's it for everyone to see. Where are you putting it?
As far as a streaming platform
It's
or
just
as far
one.
as
You could either be doing shows. You could go on like a Spotify, you can go on Apple Music, you can go on Amazon, you could be on social media and
I
playing
mean, if you can only be on one place, it should be TikTok
TikTok, your music on TikTok,
for the
and find
next
a way to get people to choose it.
year for sure. I would say that's where your concentration should be in a year from now or so. TikTok's explosiveness is going to be gone because there's going to be way too many users creating way too much content.
Yeah, so Dana she said, interesting. The label I work for looks at those numbers as requirement for signage. Or if you like them well enough, those numbers are bypassed as hard as they may be to obtain. So it kind of goes a little bit to that gut feeling, that you talked about. Like, look, numbers are great, and I think we should always use numbers are great, right? There's data out there, but we don't know if the data is good, right? You can manipulate the data
Well,
however you
that's
want
the
to.
thing. You in order to take that next step and for people to take you seriously, you have to play live and have those numbers on the internet convert to hard ticket sales.
Yeah.
But you have got to put butts in the seats. If you can't put butts in the seats, all the numbers in the world don't mean anything.
I mean, is that the most important thing? Touring live shows for a band, the revenue?
It is currently. I think that could change.
Yeah, merch. You thinking merch might be
I enjoy the streaming revenue model.
okay?
And I think once or if bands and artists can adjust their mindset to you can't look at it like you're selling a physical product. And I feel like everyone is still looking at it like that, where they're like, well, if we've got 10,000 monthly listeners, that's like 10,000 CD sales. So why aren't we making $100,000 a month? And there's a complete disconnect that one, you've never been able to calculate how much money any stream of a song made beforehand.
Mhm.
So there actually isn't a way of knowing yet if you're getting ripped off or not.
What how are they going to figure that out? They've been trying to figure that out. How are they going to figure that out? And how long do you think that'll take?
I don't know if it's possible to figure it out. It's just completely different. But in my opinion, artists just need to look at things from a completely different mindset where 20 years ago, 10 years ago, you're getting money from a label to create art to then go on tour. Where now you need to, in my opinion, create the art on your own and then after 10 years, sell your catalog. So instead of selling it on the front end to get the money to create it, you need to sell it on the back end. And once artists, I think, figure that out, they'll like streaming a lot more.
So I think one of the things that can be a very good revenue stream is live streaming shows, right? Not just streaming music. And the reason I say that is you can get to the masses. The problem is when the pandemic hit, everyone rushed to do that. And what they did is they had very poor content. It wasn't live. It was just, I think if you can do it right, I think there's value there for fans. I know Jarrett Reddick of Bowling for Soup was doing that a lot. JD Iker, big fan of JD Iker. I don't know if you know any of these people, but they're different types of music.
Yeah,
probably know Jarrett from Bowling for Soup
for sure.
He has a Patreon where he does like shows once a week, once a month, and it's him live. If you're not doing it live, I think it's a problem because I can go to get music anywhere. I mean, I could go watch and listen to recordings of music from now for hours and hours, days, weeks, months, years, right? So I want something new, original, whatever. So I think there is a possibility for that if it's done right. Now, I don't necessarily think you should do it at the same time of a live show, but I think there's a value there. And I don't know who's figured it out, but I think there is.
I really thought live streaming was going to be around heavily once the pandemic ceased. And in my opinion, it feels like it's gone away completely and that bands just don't want anything to do with it. It's just too much
again,
of
I
a
think it's
hassle
just they
for
did
them.
it the wrong way. I truly believe that they did it the wrong way. I think, like, I bought some live streams
Mhm.
and it was a pre-recorded. I don't want to watch something that's necessarily pre-recorded. And I get, I get that there's issues. It might not sound as good. People don't care. If I like these people, I want to hear them. It's the same reason why I don't want to go to a show and hear them lip syncing. I don't want to hear a track.
Right.
I want to see it because I can just throw on my phone and listen to music if I don't want to. I don't care if you're standing there, if you're not singing it. There's just a feeling about it. So I'd be curious. I think there's a chance that it could have some legs, especially it's a way to make revenue. The other thing I think of, and I'd love your opinion on this, is I think in the music world, there's too many hands in the cookie jar.
Oh, for sure.
So that's a big problem, right? Because
Not only is there too many hands in the cookie jar, but like the way those hands take from the cookie jar makes no sense.
yeah,
Like
there's a
managers, like most managers taking all their commission off of gross income,
yeah,
where it's like all the bands in my scene, I can go back in the last 25 years and it's like 90% of them don't make it. And then you start to think about if they didn't pay 15% of gross and they paid off of net, and if they owned their music, things would be completely different for them. They wouldn't be rich and famous, but they'd be able to live an okay life still just off of their art.
yeah. That's a double-edged sword because you almost need that to take to that next level. At least they feel they do, and then it's tough. You almost like you can't. It's hard to feel bad for someone like Taylor Swift that they took all of her music, right? Then owned it, but then you look at it and you're like, no,
That's
I get it.
Yeah, I mean that situation was weird because like her dad was like a partial owner of the label.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
There's
Uh,
I want to talk about something about Taylor Swift because you're a big branding guy. Taylor Swift, I guess, owned all 10 of the Billboard, which shows that it's a brand. She's built a brand. I've listened to it. I like Taylor Swift. There's no way that 10 of her songs are the 10 best songs out there right now. It's not. So it's like what plays on the radio, what's on the Billboard. It's not. It's hard to just say these are the best because best is very subjective and there's so many different eyes on it. But it's a brand. Brand is such a huge part of music.
it's I mean it's just a big part of life.
Yeah.
Like
No,
in every facet, just from interpersonal relationships
right,
to
but you can be a
food.
popular brand in certain things, but if your product, like let's say a drink or I feel like it still has to perform. Whereas sometimes in the music world, it doesn't matter. You see who's winning the awards, who's on the Billboard, the usual suspects. It's all subject. Again, it's all subjective. Anyway, there's enough people who want to hear it because they're requesting it, or
Right. I mean, it's kind of just one of those in my head. It's like, well, even if the market is choosing them because they're getting bashed over the head with them, there's the market's still deciding that that's what they like.
yeah.
So it is what it is. It might
Yeah.
not be my cup of tea, but that's not my
No, and
job
again,
to
I like
decide.
Taylor Swift. I like a lot more of her older stuff.
I
I
think
just
that's just it shows that she has the best combination of the most fanatics and the most fanatic fanatics. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Like her fans are in on everything that she does. They want to see her win.
The Swifties.
Yeah.
Um, the I saw the other day there's a coalition to break up Ticketmaster, um,
Oh,
and just saying that the merger should never have happened.
it shouldn't have.
It's an interesting coalition because I don't know that. First of all, I don't know that they can go back and break up the merger with everything that's happened since. I don't see how you could just. I don't know how you legally. I'm not a
In
lawyer.
a long time.
Yeah, you can't just go back. It's not like I just don't know how it could physically happen.
Right.
So
Yeah.
let's just figure that out. There's obviously some issues with Live Nation and Ticketmaster with monopoly. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I think that transparency is something that is needed more, and fair practices. That's what I think needs to happen. So forget about breaking up the merger, but let's figure out a way. I found it interesting, back in the day, Pearl Jam fought with Ticketmaster, right? And
I remember. Yep.
And now they're a Ticketmaster company. I had this conversation with someone else on the show, and they said, well, it doesn't work that way. And I didn't feel like arguing. I think they might know more about the music business than I do. But at the end of the day, artists, if they wanted to take a stand, they could do a big enough tour all around the US in places that have nothing to do with Ticketmaster, and fans will go, and they could set the prices where everyone makes money.
Absolutely.
It's simply that can happen, but it doesn't. So what does that tell us?
Well, I mean, artists are unfortunately inherently lazy, in my opinion.
And they're also not making decisions,
But
right? People
well,
who
that's an that's an interesting point where most artists have no idea what decisions are being made on their behalf. That's
I liken it to an attorney who's advising his client to take a deal, a settlement, because he knows he's going to get paid a lot on that. Although he might be able to get a lot more, but he might not. That's like a thing that I.
Yeah, there a lot of artist teams steer them in the direction that will make the team the most money.
Yeah.
So picking support bands that their manager and their agent also represent, so they can double dip.
I mean, I've had conversations with people to come on the show and yeah, let's do it. And it takes 12 months to get through their team to get it to happen. No, I understand schedules. That's fine. But just if someone said, I want to do it, that's really your boss. And you should make it happen. But
it's a very interesting thing. I deal with it all the time where a band wants X, Y, or Z to happen, and we're like, cool, we're on board with it, and then their agent or their manager just says, nope, we're not allowing that to happen, and no explanation given. And the artists are so used to not having any power that they just shrug their shoulders and say, we don't know if there's anything we could do about it. Sorry.
Some don't want it. Some just want to show up and play
well, that's the thing. They want all these handlers to do everything for them. So all they have to do is play their instrument.
Yeah. Well, we had a guy in sales who didn't want to do all that stuff. He just wanted to sell. He didn't want to do it. I'm like, I get it, but also you kind of got to do it. I mean, in order to do it right, I think, or at least have eyes on it to make sure it's going right.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like when I see bands complaining on the internet about having to make content and promoting their band. I'm just like, you should be proud of what you made, where you want to go and tell everyone about it. Why are you so timid about wanting to promote your art?
I promote my stuff and I promote everyone else's stuff.
Right.
It's just, you should be until people are sick of you. Not really, but until they're like, man, is it me or am I seeing this a lot?
Correct.
Right? Because if they're not saying that, and it's funny on LinkedIn, I tell people about, when they're low, I said, you got to start connecting with people. Yeah, I've been connecting with people. I said, no, you got to connect with people until LinkedIn tells you you've connected with too many people.
Too many people. Right. Yes.
You can't 100%. Do it anymore. Then you've connected with enough people, or at least.
Yeah. One person a day is not what you think that it is.
No, it's, you got it. First of all, you always have to do the work, especially in the music business when there's a grind. There are thousands and thousands of bands out there that are better than you. There just are.
100,000 songs get released every day.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so some of it's luck, right? But a lot of it's what you put into it. And that always was the case. But now it's so much, the good thing about the music world is that there's so much access to it, right? But that's also a bad thing because there's so much access to everything. How do you get in the minds and the ears of people? Back in the day when there wasn't a lot, if you got it, then the pool was that much smaller, right?
Absolutely. But the access, that was what gave the labels and the managers the power and leverage to create the deals that they created. The barrier to entry was crazy.
Yeah.
Now it's like, back then you couldn't afford, like, not everybody could afford a good recording. Now everybody can do it in their bedroom. Like, you couldn't have distribution before. Now anybody can go to one of 40 websites and distribute your music everywhere. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Get on
You
TikTok, get on YouTube. How many YouTube stars have come? It's
Right.
wild.
So, in my opinion, you need to have less hands in the cookie jar, do more stuff yourself,
Yeah.
and realize that you have access to everything that people 10, 20 years ago didn't have access to, and take advantage of it.
Dana mentioned something about radio. Radio, from what I understand, is just a lot about money.
For sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Requests, right? It used to be if you get enough requests, sure, you can flood them with requests, but I think the world's a little bit different now. You mentioned something about, 90% are not going to be successful. I want to talk about that. I want to talk about your band that you're managing now. And what do you feel is like success is a lot like Taylor Swift success? Success like, I just saw Sister Hazel and Spin Doctors. They're playing 30 years and they're still out touring and doing stuff.
Cool.
That's success. There's also people you've never heard of who are just, playing small shows and they've been around and that's what they do. So success is in this world is it's so wide. But
So what?
what are people striving to at the minimum to be like, this is something I can do for the next 10 years and make a living out of it? And how long might that take?
Yeah, I mean, to me, that should be the goal. It's like, if you can just live your life how you want to live it doing that, then it's like, I don't know. I don't need a lot to live, so
Yeah.
it's been easy for me. But how long would it take? Well,
It's like, when do
if
you know when
if
to not to give
if
up? Because that next song, that next show, that could be it.
correct. Yeah, and the thing is it's the compounded building up of energy of every single thing that you do that
Yeah.
eventually gets that pop off moment. But if the band I managed was a solo artist, they would already be in a position where they could be living just off of the music.
So why don't more people do solo then? I see a lot of
Well,
successful bands, then they go solo.
I think in like the emo and pop punk world, that is what it's become, where there were like SoundCloud rappers that have become the singer of pop punk bands, but it's just the singer still.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see more and more of it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your band. What are they doing these days? I think they have new music coming out.
They just got home from tour this week. The guitarist is getting married in 2 weeks, so they're getting ready for that. They have a new song coming out on the 28th. Then they're doing a little holiday run in Texas of 5 shows in December. And then off for the rest of the year. We're in the process of figuring out next year. They'll be having singles in January and February, and then an album in May. And we're just sorting out some touring and other fun stuff.
Yeah, Dana. It's called Left to Suffer. Dana wanted to know. We'll get some information on there. Left to Suffer.
Yep, Left to Suffer.
Left to Suffer. Where are they in the in the life of Left to Suffer?
We launched the band 3.5 years ago, so it's still pretty brand new in my opinion. We're still growing. I mean, they do pretty well already. They can do about 250 to 300 people, almost everywhere in the country, I would say. But I don't know. We've had a long-term plan since day one, and I'm just like not budging off of that plan. I want to see it through,
Yeah.
and then see where we are. So we're right in the middle of this. We've got like 2 years left of the long-term plan.
Okay.
Uh, so I feel pretty good about it.
It's just about seeing like growth this way instead of stagnant or trending down.
Yeah, all about just creating nonstop momentum and nonstop growth, even if it's not dramatic, even if it's incremental every day, that's fine. But nonstop going up, and it's just like the, before we launched the band, I had some conversations with some friends of mine who were in an independent project, and they had been putting out music for 12 to 15 years at this point. So they had a very extensive catalog, and they had like 1 million monthly listeners. And they told me how much money they made from streaming. And once they told me, I was just like, okay, so why does everyone complain about it? And then I asked them, have you told any other bands about this? And they said, no, you're the first person to ever ask. And I was just mind blown about that. Then a year later, I saw them again, and they said, guess what we did? We sold our entire back catalog to a hedge fund Wall Street company who,
Right.
who sees the investment in the streaming reoccurring monthly income for forever, and they sold their catalog for 12x the previous year's income. And I was just like, oh shit, okay, so build up a catalog for 10 years, and then they sold it for $5 million.
So that's good.
So I'm just like, oh, okay, that's the move. Like, build up the catalog until you literally hit a ceiling that's so hard you really can't go any further. Then once you get to that point, then maybe talk to a label.
Yeah. Patience. That takes a lot of patience and
That's
faith and trust, and
it's
most don't have it, especially in the music world when they see others like, "Hey, this band sucks. What? How the hell did they get that?" And there's a lot of that, right?
yeah, I mean the young kids get taken advantage of, unfortunately, is what it is.
I think it's
It's
turning a little bit. I think people are getting a little bit more wise to that, and a little bit more power. I know Neva, trying to help the independent venues, which obviously helps the independent artists, and so that they're doing some good stuff. It's a tough battle.
yeah, it is getting better, but yeah, most young bands will just see, oh, we can be on X label, which looks cool to our friends, which means we'll go on tour with this band. And they're just like, oh, we'll just get big and make a lot of money. Like, it's just that easy, right?
But they can get heard and found out by someone and be like, "Hey, I'd love for you to open for us," and that could be something that springs you. Not necessarily have to being with a label, but getting noticed by the right people.
For sure. That's always going to be the most important thing.
Right?
But for me, because of streaming, because of Facebook ads manager, because of YouTube, and because of TikTok and all this other stuff, it's like you have the power and control of creating demand for your project on your own. And if you can create the demand, everyone in the industry that you want to work with will come running at you because they just see dollar signs. So if they see a fire that's already lit, they're going to try and come over to dump gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, but again, it's going to be the patience in it because it takes time, right? It just doesn't happen, generally speaking, overnight, and that's not easy to do for people who have families to feed and just visions of whatever that might be. It's
Yeah, I told the guys from day one, I'm like, okay, this is the information I have. We're going to test it to see if it's real. If it is, this is what the plan should be. And within a year, like, we're really noticing to see a huge jump. And then, 3.5 years in, they bring in $4,000 a month from streaming. So we have a monthly budget to grow their business on top of. And whenever they're ready to close up, retire, then all that money just goes to them.
yeah. if I always like to say this is what people ask her when I sort of explain it. If you like this band, you should check out Left to Suffer.
Oh, geez. Probably Corn. That's like the biggest band that they're comparable to.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
great music. A lot of
Yep.
good fans. Was Corn? Who was Corn at the Woodstock?
Yes,
They
yes.
were.
They're the ones yeah, no, their set from Woodstock is crazy to watch. I've watched it with the guys a few times. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was from the same one that had the Limp Bizkit riot.
I think it was because I remember the lead
Probably.
singer was. He was just like they didn't. Again, a lot of them they didn't know what was going on. I mean, I think Limp Bizkit knew they were, flaming the fire, but
Fred's smart enough, yeah.
yeah, some of the bands really didn't know what was going on throughout the whole weekend. Um,
They probably had never seen anything like that before.
yeah, it's
Definitely not in America.
no, it's wild. And I go to music festivals, and there's a lot of alcohol right out in the hot sun, middle day, especially in Florida. And there's a lot of stupid behavior,
For sure.
and inconsiderate behavior, but nothing. I don't really see a lot of like destructive behavior. And I've been to shows with
Right.
bands that mosh pits, and it doesn't. It's not. You can't blame that music. It's like to me that's a little ridiculous. And I'll tell you what, the mosh pits that I see these days, the most considerate people you'll ever see. The second someone falls, they stop, they get them
Oh,
up.
yeah,
Now,
it's not like it was when I started going to shows where
yeah. I mean,
it was like freaking gang warfare.
I'm a big dude, and I don't even want to be a part of this anymore. I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that was definitely having that many people all on the same page of wanting to destroy stuff is scary.
You know what would have solved that whole problem? $2 bottle of waters.
Yep,
That's
100.
it.
The dude, when I watched that documentary, I'm just like, yeah, all of everything that built up to it. It's like you could see that this was coming. You guys
But
really
but that's a thing for all these events. Like just sell $2 bottle of waters. You make $1.75 on each. People don't get as drunk as they need to get. People are gonna be smart, and they're gonna buy it. And look, if
they
they're
want
dirty, whatever, they'll wash themselves off in $2 bottle of water.
they want
You're not
that
buying a
profit.
$6 bottle of water and pouring it over your head.
Yeah, that would solve a lot. I don't it will never happen. I think I think the price will only go up if anything.
Yeah, if I ever had, and someday I would love to throw a festival or an event like that. There'll be rules that'll be like $2 bottle of water and just all kinds of reasonable. It's just it comes from having to make money, and a lot of money because of everyone who has to get paid.
It costs a lot to do those. And
I think there's enough money for everyone. I think
there
there is enough money for everyone,
there
and
should
to
be.
allow the fan and the customer to still be treated right.
I think so much emphasis has been put on taking care of the artists that most people have just completely just forgotten about the fans and the fan experience. Just assuming that they're going to come regardless.
Yeah, and I think the streaming part too. If they figure out the streaming, like what happened when there was no shows? What did people do? I mean, Zach Brown let part of his band go,
Right.
and Zach Brown. I mean, I don't know how. I can't imagine Zach Brown needed to let his band go because a year of no music, unless he really invested his money poorly. I don't.
Right. Yeah, you would expect that someone like that at least would be
Yeah.
fine.
So it's
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of bands in our scene just didn't make it at all.
well,
Like
what's the difference between the bands in your scene and making it and not making it? What would you say if 90% aren't? What's the main reason they don't? Because there's enough people and there's enough room for
It,
lots of people to like lots of music. Like it's gone are the days where I only like this guy and I'm going to listen to their album. Like
right.
I have a ton of different people. I don't listen to the same artist very often at all.
I honestly think it's a combination of them not owning their masters and them giving away all of their money to having too many crew members on the road and giving their manager 15% of gross for ordering their merch, basically. And that's it. Like a lot of those managers don't do a whole lot. They just control everything. So you just have to, really.
The band, do you have other things that you have planned that you'd like to do, or is it just the band and that's
Yeah, I have a new website company called Tour Soundtrack that I'm getting ready to launch, hopefully before the end of the year. Um, been working on it kind of since the beginning of this year when I left the Masquerade. So that's what I've been working on besides the band mostly.
and we could get this at some point, you say hopefully this year.
Correct. Yeah, the website is getting finished as we speak, basically.
And what is it?
It will be a website where, on one hand, bands and artists that are doing headlining tours can monetize the playlist that's played every night on their tour. So during dead time, during set changes, etc.
Ah,
So then young bands can go on the site and they'll say, okay, Korn is going on tour. I can have my song played in front of all of the Korn fans every night.
yeah, I like that idea.
And then there'll be marketing initiatives and other things involved.
I've had a few ideas about stuff like that, getting the fan more involved in the touring, and what's heard when the bands are playing. I'll have to talk to it about once I see what you're doing. Talk to a little bit more about that. But I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, my goal for a while has been creating revenue streams for my friends that didn't exist prior because they need it because they get ripped off. Period. So if we can create new revenue for them on one hand and create a brand new marketing platform and strategy for up and coming bands at the same time, it's a win-win.
What's your favorite type of memorabilia and merch? You've been in the business a long time, seen a lot of shows. What do you collect anything? Do you buy anything?
I don't. I wish I had collected everything over the years. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've just seen the same things a million times, so it's very hard to impress me. When I see an interesting merch item, that always catches my eye, something I haven't seen before or don't see often. Yeah, don't really collect though.
I bought a few vinyls lately. I got a Pearl Jam vinyl and a Tom Petty vinyl. I don't have a vinyl player. I don't know. They're like unique type of
Yeah,
thing. I think it's
yeah.
making
I
a
have
little
like
comeback.
maybe 10 vinyl total.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have about 4 or 5. I don't have a player, but I just think
Yeah, me neither.
I think it's cool. It's unique. Especially on record store day, which people might not know is still a thing. Record store day is it's a
Huge. It's huge.
really
Yeah.
cool. New music and just going out and um, yeah, I love participating in record store day. Which
I
is
think bands should pay more attention to creating merch items that are collectibles rather than just wearables.
yeah, we're working on our stuff. I think this to me in the music world, this is a mini poster. It's a shirt. You could have 100 of these, but you can't have 100 shirts. I mean, you can, but that's a little outrageous, right?
Right.
So I agree with you. I think they should. I don't see a lot of good merch. Merch is very expensive anyway to begin with, but I go to these shows and I don't see a lot of things that I would want. And then there's an organization that I go to often, and I saw something I really liked that people were wearing. I'm like, that's awesome. Where was it? They sold it the year before, and then they never sell it again. And I said, all right, well, I can get enough people who want to do an order, and they won't do it. I'm like, just tell us what the minimum order is
That's weird.
and how much it's going to be, and we'll buy it.
That's funny.
But
Yeah,
they're creating a lot of merch, and it's weird. I mean, now it's a little bit different because there's on demand where, but if you're at a show, that's not the on demand. This is like, hey, we got to print a bunch of this stuff and shirts and hats, and it's got to sell. I just don't know. I mean, they're obviously selling enough of it, and just because I don't like it doesn't mean other people don't like it. And then some people just want something, and it doesn't matter what's up there. So I'm going to get something.
they
I'm
want
going
to
to
go
buy it.
home. They want to go home with something
Yeah.
physical in their hand.
I go on my trips all the time, and every year, and I buy a hat, and I'm like, this last time, I'm like, I don't really like any of these hats, but I'm gonna buy a hat.
Right. Yeah. At this point, I have to.
Yeah, Dana's a big supporter. Where, what's your favorite venue? Do you have a favorite venue that you've seen, and a place that you've never been that you'd like to go, or a band that you've never seen that you'd like
Favorite
to go see
venue.
also?
Wow. Favorite venue. There was, I don't know if it's still around. Well, the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City, Roseland Ballroom in New York City, but
Yeah,
that's not around anymore, unfortunately. And then PlayStation. It used to be called Best Buy Theater, and then PlayStation Theater. It was in Times Square.
yeah.
Uh, those three venues were, I think, were probably my favorite. Plus Boston House of Blues.
Where would you love to go see a show that you've never been?
Hmm.
Red
Interesting.
Rocks is on my list. I'm
Oh, I
with
mean,
yours.
yeah, that's the place. I
We're
feel
hoping to
like
do
at this
some
point,
work.
everyone needs to go there at least once,
Yeah,
right?
we're hoping to do some work with Red Rocks. But I gotta find. I almost feel like it doesn't matter who I see, but I keep looking through the lineup. Like I want to go see someone I like, but it doesn't. It probably wouldn't matter who you
Probably
see.
not. It'll probably be an experience regardless.
Yeah, anyone you haven't seen, obviously you've seen so many. Is someone you haven't seen that you would still like to see, or they're no longer around?
I mean,
Who
my
would you
favorite
pick?
band of all time is Nirvana, and I never got to see
Yeah.
them. But the band that's still around that I haven't seen that I would is Radiohead.
Okay. Yeah. Good choice.
Yep.
I like it. We're going to let you out of the Wolf Den with the same question everyone gets. You get 24 hours to spend with anyone in the world. They have to be alive and you can't be related to them. Who would you choose and what would you guys do?
Holy moly. That's an interesting question. Oh, man, I have a lot of different ideas going through my head.
Yeah, what comes to mind first?
What comes to mind first would be somebody like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk
Yeah,
or
get that.
Mark Zuckerberg or just one of those characters. And honestly, I would just want to see what a normal day for them was like.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be
What do you
honest.
anticipate it like? Get up early.
I anticipated to be, yeah, getting up early and where every 10 to 15 minutes is scheduled out for the whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would be
And busy all
expecting.
day, every day. I mean, at this point, how much are they really doing? They've already built. I know Elon is probably more than say Zuckerberg, but
I I don't know. Part of me thinks that they just really like playing, and that's
yeah,
playing to them, so they
yeah.
probably won't ever stop.
If you had to pick one, who is it?
Man, they're all at the. It's like the three biggest supervillains on the planet.
Well, Elon now it feels like
Probably Elon because I kind of think that he's just a troll and like
yeah.
that he's not actually like people just
Will
take
Twitter survive?
yeah, I think
But
so.
I
It's been around for so long. I mean, unless I mean anything can go
yeah, will he be
haywire.
at the helm of it as it survives, or is I mean, he's got to take a 180. There's no way he can continue on.
It's so hard to predict. I I think it will. I think it will
I
survive
think
with
so
him.
too. I'm
Yeah.
not interested in going to any other social media for that aspect. It's just I kind of like it, even though I think it's filled with a lot of garbage now. It's
For sure. Uh, I think it's like the loudest people are the minority, and I think it's difficult to remember that in the moment, but I think it's something important to remember where the majority of people are not. the crazies on either side.
Yeah, what I like about Twitter is the ability to engage. Like you can have conversations, you can send a photo, you can send like Instagram. You can't really. There's not good engagement. Instagram is great. You put this out there, see what I have to do. Yeah, make a comment, but Facebook's not going anywhere. I mean,
No,
Facebook's
not going anywhere. That's number
they're not going
one
anywhere.
forever. It's going to take something dramatic to knock Facebook off. That's like the TV now. That's like the TV guide channel. Like that, it ain't going nowhere. It's it's the start of the internet.
I remember I was like hanging out with this girl who was quite a bit younger than I was, and she was telling me about this Facebook. I was like, maybe I'll get a Facebook page, and she's like, "Well, why would you want that?" I'm like, this was before people were on Facebook. It was just college, right?
Yeah.
Great movie, by the way. The Social Network. I got to watch that again. Such a great movie. Timberlake, a very underrated actor.
I agree. I think that's a good movie for inspiration for anyone who's trying to create something of their own.
Yeah, and I think we should encourage people to create. Right, content is king right now. Create, find a way to get what you're doing or what someone else is doing out in front of others, and let the masses share. Speaking of that, Instagram and TikTok at Left to Suffer. Check them out. New music coming up. Maybe a show to your area next year. Doing some things, I think, with you and your plan. I think they're going to be in good hands and headed in the right direction. So interested to see.
I'm excited for everyone to watch it all unfold.
Yeah. And that's all we can do is sort of like, it's really cool. That's one of the things we love about these documentaries is to see, like, nobody cares what they're doing now. When we watch these bands like Queen and Elton John, we want to see the story of what is going on right now with them. So that's the exciting part from a fan's perspective. So check them out. Appreciate the time. We'll talk again soon. Another episode tomorrow on the Wolff Den. Have a great night. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Matt.